first contact with Joshua Pope.
All right, for today on Thursday, I've chosen to make this today to talk about the politics that is taking place in the world. There's a lot of them, a lot of things taking place, and we want to stay on top of them, but I don't really necessarily feel the need each and every day. You follow the Twitter feed at First Contact now, so you know that on a daily basis I'm putting news out there, and that should suffice to keep you on top of what the current events are, point you in the right direction. And on Thursdays, I'll do a compilation of everything that's going on, kind of the highlights, okay? Because there's a lot of really great things taking place out there, a lot of really awesome things that are taking place with what Donald Trump is doing. They're not all being talked about in the mainstream media, and that's unfortunate. It's because so many of them are involved with the process of all the corruption and scandals. So let's take a further look at some of these stories here. Okay. First one up here, this one took place today. Donald Trump honors members of the Wounded Warrior Project at the White House. Donald Trump honored members of the Wounded Warrior Project in a ceremony at the White House on Thursday. The president, who repeatedly promised to boost spending for Veterans Affairs on the campaign trail, addressed a room full of them, some in wheelchairs, others with prosthetics. The members are participating in the Wounded Warrior Project Soldier Ride, a 4-day bike ride through Washington that the charity says is an opportunity for wounded service members and veterans to use their cycling and camaraderie to overcome physical, mental, or emotional wounds. Melania and I are deeply honored to join you all today and to stand here among real heroes. These are real heroes, Trump says as he took the stage. Secretary Skulkin and Secretary Zinke, who are standing right here in front of us, I want to thank you as we pay tribute to America's heroes and winners. The Soldier Ride has been very unique. Thank you for organizing this event, and thank you for serving those who have so bravely served our nation. On behalf of the country, let me extend to all of the riders and your families the warmest possible welcome to the People's House. I call it the People's House. It's the White House, but I call it the People's House. You are all so amazing. You risked all that you have, all that you possess, to keep our people safe and our democracy secure. We're going to keep it for a long time, folks. You've earned our freedom with your sweat and your blood. We salute you. We salute your service. Okay, so there you go. That's the first thing. Now, some of the other news that we need to be aware of. Heard about this attack that took place yesterday in Syria. Here's an article over at Zero Hedge. Ron Paul quote saying, Assad behind chemical weapons attack. It's likely a false flag. Okay, as Paul Joseph Watson details, pointing out that the prospect of peace in Syria was moving closer before the attack with ISIS and Al-Qaeda on the run. Paul said the attack made no sense. It looks like somebody didn't like that there, so there had to be an episode, said Paul, asking who benefits. It doesn't make any sense for Assad under these conditions to all of a sudden use poison gases. I think there's zero chance he would have done this deliberately. Former congressman went on to explain how the incident was clearly being exploited by the neocons and the deep state to enlist support for war. It's the neoconservatives who are benefiting tremendously from this because it's derailed the progress that had already been made moving towards a more peaceful settlement in Syria. Okay, so very fascinating. Not only that, but yesterday there was reports that were coming out in advance of this attack even occurring. So more signs that something about this event was staged. You see, a lot of what's going on is Susan Rice is being called out for her activities and being a part of all of the scandals that are taking place. And in order to cover it, the Democrats and the media are just hollering anything that can distract from that being known. Okay, a little bit more. Here's an older story. Reminder, Saudi-made chemical weapons delivered to Al-Qaeda rebels in Aleppo. Just something more kind of confirming what we were just alluding to. Syrian National Army has discovered Saudi-made stocks of chemical weapons in recently liberated city of Aleppo. The large supply of chlorine chemical agents originally belonged to military groups that previously dominated the eastern parts of the city. They have Saudi marks in them. Al Masura News site reported. Okay, so let me move on from there. Much more. We're going to deal with this topic here of Susan Rice. Okay, we are hearing another big story that's in the news these days is the scandal of the intelligence reports, the scandal that took place with what is happening with the Trump wiretapping that went on, what is happening with his administration. You hear there's a constant bombardment by the mainstream media trying to really pull down anything successful he is doing. It's very bizarre. I've never in my entire life seen where an organization is so bound and determined to want to tear down an agency and in essence to tear down the country. Really it's what they're doing, trying to destroy, and I don't understand. But Susan Rice, as we know, has been involved with a number of things. You've heard her name before. Remember Benghazi? She was the one claiming the video. Then it was turned out there was no video that she was talking about. Okay, so here's a report. Dennis Michael Lynch, good site to go to. According to a new report by Bloomberg News, U.S. officials are reporting that White House lawyers became aware last month that former National Security Advisor Susan Rice requested the identities of U.S. persons in raw intelligence reports associated with the Trump campaign and transition operations in numerous occasions. Rice's actions were discovered during a National Security Council review of the government's policy on unmasking the identities of people in the United States whose communications are collected incidentally through electronic eavesdropping. Those names are usually redacted from summaries of monitored communications and are identified in reports simply as U.S. Person 1 or the like. The review was being conducted by National Security Council Senior Director for Intelligence Ezra Cohen-Watnick. Bloomberg reports that in February, Cohen-Watnick uncovered Rice's multiple requests to unmask U.S. persons and intelligence reports associated with Trump's transition operations. Cohen-Watnick alerted the White House General Counsel's office, who reviewed additional requests from Rice and instructed him to stop his own research into unmasking policy. Cohen-Watnick alerted the White House General Counsel's office, who reviewed additional requests from Rice and then instructed him to stop his own research into the unmasking policy. The intelligence reports contain summaries of monitored conversations, mostly between foreign officials who are addressing the Trump transition, but in some instances, reports picked up direct contact between Trump associates and the monitored officials. According to U.S. official familiar with the reports, they revealed high-value political information on the Trump transition, such as who was involved in meetings with the Trump team, the former policy views of Trump insiders, and plans for the incoming administration. Rice has not yet commented on the allegations which are integral in the current investigations regarding Trump and his wiretapping claims. Okay, so Trump and his wiretapping claims are proving to be true. Again, the term wiretapping is something that they're trying to grab a hold of and say, well, they weren't wiretapping. There's wireless communication. Wiretapping is a generic word we use to talk about surveillance in the same way that when you use the word Kleenex, doesn't mean you're always using a tissue that's brand name Kleenex. It's just we've gotten so used to the product that when we see a tissue, we usually, just because of name recognition of the commercial played over and over, we refer to it as that. There's many different things in life. So just because we use a particular term, sometimes we have to look to the broader sense of what that term is about, as opposed to some sort of narrow way that got there because of propaganda. Here's another additional piece. This one is from Scott Adams, Dilbert creator. He says, how a hypnotist sees a verbal slip. This is a really good article. Basically, during the course of this, what he explains is a comment that was made in which she said, let's see, she said, I leaked nothing to nobody and never have and never would. Okay? I leaked nothing to nobody and never had and never would. So first of all, thank you for the wonderful grammar lesson. by Miss Susan Rice to the children of America. I joke there, that is not the way to speak. That is actually, I don't know what kind of grammar lesson this woman took, but the phrase of "I leak nothing to nobody" really isn't something that you be here in schools being taught. Anyway, based on this statement here and this analysis in this article by Scott Adams, he talks about how the subconscious within her is actually giving away her own guilt. Okay, so I just thought this would be an interesting article for you to read on that particular subject. Let's jump over here and take a look further at this story that's breaking now about Steve Bannon. Fake New York Times news is creating fake drama. Bannon is fine. And look at hack reporters. Maggie Haberman of the New York Times is, in the words of the Democratic National Committee Communication Department, a friendly journalist who has teed up stories for them and never disappointed them. Glenn Thrush of the New York Times would send his stories to John Podesta for pre-approval. Thrush admits he's a hack. Thus, one should remain skeptical of a story about Stephen Bannon appearing in the New York Times with a shared Haberman and Thrush byline. The headline reads, "Bannon's role is diminished as others blame him for setbacks." Unlike Maggie Haberman, I broke the Susan Rice story. She has no real sources. She's a friendly journalist who tees up stories for the DMC. Bannon has never attended an NSC meeting. His job was to make the NSC less political. People learned about the personal movement via the Drudge Report because Bannon had no actual direct role. His move would have gone unnoticed if the fake news media hadn't made a big deal out of it, because no one notices someone is missing when he was never there in the first place. Remember this, Maggie Haberman is a DNC-friendly journalist. That is not my spin. This is what the communication department of the DNC said. Okay, now, and further on, Glenn Thrush is a hack. That's not my word. This is his word. Okay, so again, what do you see here? You see that there is deception. The media is trying to deceive you into something that is happening that really isn't happening. Why are they doing this? Because they've been caught red-handed. Okay, they've been lying, they've been cheating, they've been stealing. They've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar. So what are they going to do? They're going to keep claiming Trump's administration is a mess. They're going to keep claiming Russia did it and all this other stuff. Okay? It's just typical strong-arm tactics, Alinsky-style tactics of intimidation, and we need to not buy into them. Because actually Trump is really doing what he said he was going to do. And that's the amazing part that people are having a real hard time dealing with. One more piece today. House Intelligence Chair Nunes to step down from the Russia probe. Says the California Republican congressman said he is stepping down to entirely false accusation filed against him with the Office of Congressional Ethics. The decision will also affect the committee's probe into alleged possible interaction between Moscow and Trump campaign staffers. The probe will now be conducted by congressional members Michael Conaway, Republican from Texas, and Trey Gowdy, a Republican from South Carolina, and Tom Rooney. Representative Gowdy is the chairman of the House Select Committee, which carried out the investigation of the 2/12 Benghazi attack. Declaring the charges against him false claims, Nunes says he intends to speak with the Ethics Office as soon as possible. House Speaker Paul Ryan says in a statement that Nunes still has his trust, that he supports the chair's decision to step aside from the probe. He added that he is confident the temporary head, Representative Conway, will conduct a professional investigation into Russia and follow the facts. Ryan called the ethics probe of Nunes a distraction to the committee's investigation of Russian interference, adding that Nunes stepped away because he wants to clear himself without holding up the Intelligence Committee. Okay, so there you have it. A whole hodgepodge of news that is taking place in Washington, D.C. right now, just to keep you on top of it. So the bottom line from all of this is Washington, D.C., the media, all of those corrupt are trying to keep a lid on the stories of their corruption by continually distracting you with stories of incompetence and the Russians. Okay? They're going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. But it's not going to win, because eventually they're going to have to stop crying at some point, they're going to have to get with the program and realize they failed simply because they failed. All right, that is our wrap-up of political news for today. Stay tuned. We'll continue on momentarily.